Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. And welcome once again, everybody, to the Best Practices Podcast. My name is Dino Watt, and I am thrilled to have you here listening and learning on how you can take the best practices that we found for you and implement them inside of your practice. And today is no exception to our list of amazing experts that have come on the show and shared with you how you can take just one or two little nuggets of best practices and put them into your practice as well. Today, I'm going to introduce to you a gentleman named Christopher Ciardello. Sorry, I messed that up right as I'm saying it. I was so worried about messing it up that I did. Christopher Ciardello. Christopher, great. Thank you for having you on the show today.
I appreciate being here. I've been looking forward to this.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, we got to meet last January when I got to see you on stage at the Dental Speakers Institute. I was impressed there with what you were doing and with what people talked about there. But my audience doesn't know who you are for the most part. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, and how you got involved in this crazy world of helping practitioners out.
So I am historically, they've always called us dental consultants, but I actually look at myself as more of a business coach for dentists, just helping them understand what it is that they need to help their practice grow, whether it be focusing on goals or switching even employees around into different positions. And so our little tagline is, we help doctors create the tools they need to maintain an organized, business-focused, yet fun environment.
Oh, nice. That's very cool. How did you decide to get into this world, though?
Well, it's kind of a bit of a long story, but in a nutshell, growing up, my mother, she got her degree in marketing, and as we moved around with my dad being in the Navy, she would pick up various jobs in different industries. And so when I first went to college, I was like, I'll go with a marketing degree because I knew it was very versatile. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. While I was in college, that's when my mom, she actually met Janice Jansen, and they developed Global Team Solutions and started building this company up together. And watching them do this while I was going through college, it intrigued me. And so my mother said that if I wanted to work for her, first I had to go work in a dental office and get some hands-on experience.
Oh, smart.
And that's when she actually connected me with Dr. Tiffany Stratton over in San Antonio. And I helped her open a brand new practice. She had searched and thought about purchasing practices from doctors, but she didn't really want to go down. She didn't want to purchase somebody else's mess. She just wanted to make her own. And so that's what we did. We used leveraged Dentrix to go Chartless, and she helped me, actually certified me as an assistant, got me through the training, and I was her assistant and the front office for the first about 6 months of the practice.
Wow.
And as we grew, we brought in assistants and hygienists and expanded the company and expanded the practice. And then once I had enough experience, then my mother started allowing me to start going and consulting with her and Janice. And then slowly got out of the day-to-day practice, and now I just do consulting and practice management software training.
So it's very interesting because the last interview, and obviously this is not in order, but the interview I did today was a doctor who came from the place of saying, hey, I was a practice owner. I know those ins and outs of that. And so now I'm helping people in the consulting world of helping those practice owners. So I have that perspective. And now I get to talk to you that has the perspective of you've actually been in the trenches to understand what's going on with the team members so you can speak to that. So I think that's a really powerful place to speak from. How has that benefited you in what you do now?
In a number of tremendous ways, because I'm part of Global Team Solutions. Anyone who comes onto our team, we make sure that they have hands-on in-office experience, because you have a little bit more credibility when you're talking to people, and you have more empathy, and you're able to kind of help grasp on what it's going to take in order to achieve the goal that you're looking to achieve. And I felt really blessed because Dr. Stratton hired me on as her front office, and then the assistant one day just didn't show up. So she pulled me and trained me to do the assisting as well. And it really helped my administrative skills to have that clinical background. And
that's
so
awesome.
I feel like it does help me empathize more with a broader range of the team.
So with that with your company and being able to go into these other practices, where do you specialize? Like, what is your thing that you love to go in and be like, ooh, I can totally help you out with that. Like, that's my thing. I got that.
Personally, it has to do with helping the office go to a chartless format. We see a lot of offices where they have the computer software, the practice management software, and then they also still have a physical chart that they're putting something in. A lot of times by the time we come in there, it's usually just consent forms, new patient paperwork, anything that's been reports from referring doctors. And I really enjoy helping the office set up the systems they need to make sure they've got everything digital and they don't need this physical chart anymore.
It's funny because as an advisor myself, but also as even a patient, when I walk in, sometimes I do go into practices and I see them doing the digital part of it, but right behind them is that wall with all those files that goes in, and it's like they still have, it's like they're still stuck between the two worlds and not getting there. Why do you think it's important for, it sounds like kind of a juvenile question, but I think it's important for people to get this. Why do you think it's important for people to, now more than ever, as quick as they can, go digital as opposed to the physical part of things?
Well, as we've seen in the medical industry, they've been mandated for about at least 5 years now that all medical records have to be electronic. There is no more this physical chart. Dental's always a little bit behind medical on a lot of the different trends, and I think that has to do with because there's more private practice inside dental. Personally, the reason I say it is because it is easier. It's hard in the beginning once you go through that initial conversion, but once you've converted and you're actually getting into the flow of being chartless, it's a lot easier, especially when you bring on new employees, helping them locate and find documents. I remember when I was younger and my mom was still working in a dental office, she would always be complaining about physical charts and them getting misplaced or staying on the doctor's office or hidden behind a cubby somewhere. And just the office I came from, we were purely digital, and I never had that issue. I can't even imagine how terrifying it can be to think like, oh my gosh, this patient chart is missing, we can't find it, and having to tear an office apart. So that's a personal reason why I would say it would be easier and a lot more streamlined, where one day it's going to be mandated that everything be digital, that you no longer have a physical chart, and that you have the systems in place to be completely chartless. And I think that's, the sooner you get that under wraps before it's mandated, the better it's going to be for you and your team and the whole culture of your practice.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting that you say, it's hard at first, right? Like you're not blowing smoke up anybody. You're letting them know, yeah, it's going to be a little more challenging at first. And that's where a lot of people stop, right? It's like, oh man, it's so much work. I just like doing it the same way we've always done it, which I think is the death of any practice, right? When you say, hey, it's just the way we've always done it, you've stopped your progress, obviously. But isn't that the truth with most things, that at first, if you just take the time, if you just take the little bit of effort it's going to take, the little bit of pain, get out of your comfort zone to do the thing, then it's going to make your life easier afterwards. How do you, as a company, actually make that process easier for the practitioners?
We take it one step at a time, because you can't eat a whole elephant in one sitting. As the saying goes, right?
Yep.
And so if there's a lot that still needs to be converted over into that digital format, we'll take it bits and pieces at a time. The first thing that I like to do, obviously, if you're already doing the scheduling, you're already doing the billing, the next step is just going to be making sure that all of the charting is done digitally. The existing work, anything that's been referred out, anything you're watching, any conditions they have, and then going from there and then taking the next step, which is what I would say is the next easiest, would be doing your consent forms digitally. And then going into your clinical notes, and depending on how far that team is how quickly we'll be able to, address those different areas. But that's one thing that we like to do, is we like to take it in bite pieces. So that way it's more manageable for the whole team, and everyone then is on board. Because if you have 5 changes all of a sudden, everyone's going to be up in the air and not really knowing what exactly they need to do. Where if you say, okay, for this month, we're going to focus on this. We're only going to change this one little area. Get into a good habit of it. Once we've got that in a solid habit, then we'll shift over and go into this direction.
Well, it's really smart, right? Because it shows, first of all, when you're chunking it down like in little pieces like that, your first being able to focus only on the one thing instead of the 20 things, because when you focus on the 20 things, you just stop doing everything, right? But you're focusing on this one thing, and then you're showing them the benefit of the result of focusing on that thing. So it makes it hopefully a little bit easier to now say, okay, now we're going to go to phase 2, and you're probably going to have a lot less, griping and grumpiness and pushback, because they saw the results of step 1 of that little chunk there. Would that be correct?
Oh, that is totally correct, because they see the success and they're proud of themselves, and it brings that excitement of like, okay, we can do this. We've got the next step. Let's go ahead and tackle it and move forward. Where if you've got a whole bunch of them and you're not able to be successful in any one of them, then it kind of deflates the team to not want to do any of the progress moving forward and just stay in their old habits.
That's awesome. That's very good. So as you walk into a practice, you see, okay, we need to get this organized better. We need to go paperless and get this all digital process down. What do you feel is the biggest kind of pushback you get from the owners? Is it the time it's going to take? Is it the technology? Is it the, I don't want to learn one more thing? Or is it something else?
It does have to do a lot with expectations. A lot of the doctors, when we first come in, they want to see results now and they want to see them tomorrow. And in the reality, it's like old habits die hard.
Sure.
And you give time for some of the change to happen and then to see the fruits of those labors at the same time. It's just like we'll like when it comes to reviews, we've gone into a few offices and we've really focused on working on the office's reviews on Google, on Facebook, across all the platforms. And it's one of those things, it takes a year to a year and a half to really start to see a consistent change in the culture, in the way your patients are hearing about your practice, for that to be seen. We had one doctor that we started doing that and realized that was the area they really need to start working on, because the patients that were coming in loved them, but they just weren't saying anything online. So we started getting them to ask, and they did. And the new patient rate of them coming in was pretty about the same as it was the year prior to them bringing us in. But after a year, almost a year and a half, their new patient numbers doubled. And they were starting to get a bigger influx. And they were having to really start forcing themselves to leave new patient appointments open and blocking them off. So, when new patients call, they'd be able to get them in fairly quick.
Well, so I can imagine that you go in, and I'm just hearing other doctors in my mind right now, right? I can hear them listening to this show and their objections that they're trying to come up with. And one of them I could see being, and I'm sure you've dealt with this, is that sure, the doctor's on board. Most of the team members are on board, but I believe that whenever you make a stand for something and you change something in your life, there are going to be people who are either going to do one of two things. They're either going to gravitate to you and be like, yes, I want more of that. Or they're going to be like, nope, I don't want anything to do with that. And they're going to push away from you. But before they do, they have to try to stop you from moving forward. They have to try to convince you to pull back. So in that sense, in these practices, do you ever run up against team members who everyone else is on board, but there's one or two, I hate to use this word, but the troublemakers, right? The ones that are like the crabs, the wet blankets, right? Yep, the ones that are trying to pull you back down. I'm like, no, let's go back. Let's go do this here. Why do I have to? Well, how do you deal with that?
Unfortunately, it kind of takes a little bit of hand-holding for those people, a little bit of pulling them aside, having one-on-ones and explaining to them, the importance, the benefits that are going to come from it, just giving it a chance, kind of having to be a little bit of a cheerleader for that person and saying, no, yeah, this is what we want. And yes, you can do it. And this is how it's going to happen.
Because I bet when something goes wrong, right? I bet you're the first call when something, see, it doesn't work. See what you said. And it's usually user error, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to deal with that. So what do you say in that situation?
Well, if there's ever any kind of an issue that arises up, it's definitely, okay, let's backtrack and let's see how it happened, how the situation progressed, and figure out where the misstep happened. And then you're right, we'll typically find the user error, or we'll find an issue that we didn't really foresee happening. And then that's when we address it and we handle it like, okay, well, when this happens in the future, we're going to go down this path now. And it takes that. And then sometimes it just kind of, depending on what you're implementing, because it has to do with, patient chart, patient records. I mean, those are legal documents, and that's a serious matter. And if they're not being handled the way the office wants, you may have to take it to the point where you've got to counsel that person. And it may be after a few counselings that it turns out they're not really a good fit for the practice, or they will see the seriousness of that and make the correction because they appreciate the practice and they want to be part of this team.
Right.
It's kind of one of those things, it's hard to say that, there's a set way to handle it every single time, because it's going to be very different in every situation depending on the practice, the personalities of the staff, and the personalities of the patients as well.
I think that must be one of the benefits of having you as a consultant and your company, because now the doctors have someone that they can say, hey, this is the situation. I need you to help me deal with this, or this is a new situation. I need you to help me. So you guys are the go-betweens, if you will. You guys are the ones to manage that challenge that's up there. I love that you said that you put those expectations up front of, hey, this is going to take about a year to year and a half to actually make the total change and transition, because then you're actually, like you said, managing those expectations, setting the expectations, and you can continually talk to that expectation. Hey, I know, but we're only 5 months in. Hey, I know we're only 6 months in. We got some time. It's okay. You guys are doing fine the way you are right now. So I think that's great that you do that. Are there other expectations you want people to have when they're starting on this journey with you?
It's really leveraging us as when they bring GTS as consultants in. The best thing that the teams can do, aside from the doctor, is leverage leaning on us. And
love it.
Because one of the things that we do that may be a little bit different is we go visit each office, each client that we have once a month. And then in between, we go through and we call the office to do checkups, and we send reports to the doctor every week of all the communication that we have with the office. And with those weekly calls, it's usually us reaching out to the office and probing and seeing what's going on, if there's any issues that have arisen, and then dealing with them. But it's always refreshing when we have offices that are reaching out to us ahead of time, and they recognize the problem and they call us first and like, okay, this is the issue I've got, and how can we handle it? How can we move forward? So
I think that's a really good point that people need to understand is when you hire a consultant, when you hire an advisor, when you are investing in something that's going to be better your team, better your delivery, to utilize it. And I know myself, and you just said it there, is we want you to reach out to us. We want you to call us. When there's a challenge, we're there for you. We don't want you to wait until either the problem festers or your emotion festers around it, and then you get to that place of like, well, this doesn't work, this is terrible, instead of, hey, if you would have called me a month ago or 2 weeks ago or 2 days ago, we could have solved this problem. We want you to reach out to us. I think that's a very important point that not a lot of people use as they hire consultants, like you just said. Reach out to us, let us know so we can help out. We want to be there for you.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true, yeah.
We can't just, we're not mind readers. We don't sit there and be like, I think Dr. So-and-so is having a problem today. Let me reach out. Like,
you don't have a magic wand. We can just
no, not at all. So let's talk about
teamwork.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about results. I'm a big fan of looking at, okay, what's the results of what you do? Can you tell us any stories or any experiences that you've had where there was a real result that maybe the doctor wasn't expecting, or that you really like to brag about, if you will?
My personal favorite one, it has a lot to do with Harvey that hit Houston.
Okay.
A couple years back, and this was a client that they weren't in Houston. They were further down south, closer to the Gulf, closer to Corpus Christi. And what happened was, we started working with the doctor about a year or two prior to Harvey, and she brought us in because she was having issues with collections, and the ARR and her insurance aging was kind of getting a little out of hand. Brought us in, we focused on that. And we also helped focus on other just flows of the team, with the clinical team communicating with the front and making sure all the customer service was there. And we were able to get them in that 2-year period prior to Hardy to a point where their production increased so much that the doctor was actually able to save about 6 figures worth of money and have a down payment to buy a new practice and relocate. Because at the time, she was in a place that she was renting. She owned her practice and everything inside of it, but she was renting her space. And she wanted to get to a point where she owned the building. Mm-hmm. And there were a few doctors in the area who were retiring, and she was looking to see which practice she wanted to purchase for the patients and also the space. Mm. And so that was a huge success story for us. One, that we were able to get them to a point where they were able to increase their production, but at the same time, start getting out earlier, having hour-long lunches, and running on time. And so it was before they were kind of working crazy and doing longer hours, and we were able to shorten their hours and increase their productivity to that point. And what happened, she found the practice she was going to purchase, did all the paperwork, signed it off, and then it was August 1st is when they moved out of her old space and into the new space, and did a great job. She just had to give it a little bit of a facelift, some paint, a few new pieces of furniture, and the place was a beautiful space. And then all the patients that she purchased were wonderful patients on top of it. So it was really an awesome situation for her. And then when you fast forward to 2 weeks after they moved into this new space, party hits. Her new space, perfectly fine. They were all good. There was no damage, no issues.
Oh, good.
The old space, though, the roof collapsed, or a part of it collapsed, and water got in and flooded the entire building. Wow. And so that's one of those stories where it was like, not only were we able to get her to a point where she was able to purchase her own space, which is something she ended up doing, and also simultaneously avoid a huge natural disaster that would have potentially wiped out her practice.
Of course, yeah, her entire business. Wow, what a great story. That's really amazing. I think what you guys do is really important, and I think that it's one of those things that people need to put their focus and energy on, because maybe you won't have a hurricane, right? Maybe you won't have one of those bad situations, but you never know. You never know what the situation is. And to be able to get up to date, I talk a lot about the evolution of a practice and what I believe has happened over the last 10 years on the shift and the changes that have been happening technologically, and the advancements that we've had. But I think it's going to be even faster over the next 5 and 8 years. So having somebody like you on their side is really important. Thank you for sharing that. So this is the part of the show that we go into our rapid fire questions, where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and you're just going to give me the quickest answer possible. I'm usually the one who slows most people down during this part, so don't worry about that. You ready to play?
Yes, I am.
All right, awesome. So what do you think is the most expensive thing that practice owners are missing in their practice?
To be completely honest, I would say either a consultant or a business coach. It's one of those things. It is pricey, but it is also an investment. And I know for Global Team Solutions, we always track to see the progress that our doctors are doing, and we make sure that they are making twofold of what it is that costs for them to bring us on.
Oh, that's really smart.
So that's part of it, having that consultant or a coach, and then also to making sure you have a measurable way to see the benefits of it. For some of our doctors, they get the financial benefit, but that's not the benefit they are striving for. It's a lot of the emotional benefit that we are able to supply them and make sure that their teams are moving properly.
I think that's so important, right? To point that out, is that it's not always about the money. I mean, yes, we want to grow that practice and stuff, but a lot of times it's that emotional growth, right? That peace of mind, that being able to sleep at night, not worrying about what's going on with my records or my collections and things like that, and having somebody like you on their team is very, very powerful. All right, I'm a big fan of books, especially like audiobooks. I listen to them all the time. What is a book that you believe every private practice owner should be reading?
I would actually say it's going to be the 7 Daily Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's by Stephen R. Covey. Like, this is a really good book. It's one of those that we did every year as GTS. We have a retreat, and this year that was the book for the team to read. And it's one of those where you can read right through it. It's a lot, so it's not like a quick read. But I also would encourage to read it in bits and pieces. It's like, okay, read, the first habit, and then analyze yourself and figure out, okay, where do I fall in line with all of this? And then what is it in my life that I can tweak? and then move on to the next few, because there were some people in our group that, we read the whole book, and a lot of them felt like they were, in reality, they were still stuck on habit number one, and
Sure.
that's what they needed to focus before they could really start going even further in the book. And so that's one where it's a powerful one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of I think it's 25 years old, and it's still in the top 10 business books of all time that people should buy. It's a great read. Stephen Covey's got some great information in there, and it's something that I use in my business to this day. I teach my team members about it as well, because it's super powerful. Speaking of books, in my book, The Practice RX, I focus a lot on culture and team performance as the foundation of business growth. What do you see when you go into these practices and you get to kind of have an outsider's view, right? When you're in there, you get to kind of see what's going on, hear what's going on. What do you see as the biggest challenge that private practice owners are facing when it comes to their teams and their culture?
Understanding that the culture starts with them. They're the ones that it stems from. And whatever standards you're wanting to hold your team accountable to, you need to also hold yourself accountable to. It's really difficult to get a team to all show up for the morning huddle when the doctor doesn't show up for the morning huddle, or shows up 15 minutes after it's scheduled to be over. It's really hard to implement any kind of a honorable cell phone policy that everyone follows, and people don't waste their time on it if the doctor is constantly on their own phone throughout the day. And it's just those same kind of views that the culture and the leadership always starts with the doctor, whether you want to be or not. And that's something I would really encourage, is to just make sure that you're following the rules that you are setting in line for your employees. It's not going on the do as I say, not as I do. It's
100%
mentality or a culture to live off of.
You are the pace car, right? I'm somebody who's not a sports fan, but I understand that there's that pace car, and you have to be that pace car to show people what you want. Love that. Hey, how can, I know that you work along with the Global Team Solutions program and stuff, but how can people reach out to you? Is there a specific way that they can connect?
Email is probably the best.
Okay.
And my email is chris@gtsgurus.com. That's G as in go, T as in Tom, S as in Sam, and then gurus, GURUS.com.
Awesome. How long has Global Team Solutions been around?
It was founded in 2010, actually, and we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary this
Nice.
spring.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so the owners, Janice and Denise, have decided that they are going to take their families to Hawaii to celebrate, and I'm so grateful I'm still part of the family.
That's very good. Yeah, I'm heading out to Hawaii myself in a couple of weeks for the PCSO, so it's a great place to be, and that'll be a lot of fun. All right. So what's the best advice that you've ever received in life or business?
A few years ago, GTS, we work with business coaches for our own business as well, because that's just how important we feel that they are. And a few years ago, we worked with Fabian Fredrickson, and she had an awesome mantra that I have lived by since then, and I still do. And what it is, it's I am positively expecting great results. No matter what I see in front of me, the universe is rearranging itself for my best interest right now. And that is something that anytime I'm in a stressful situation, or I'm in a hurry, or I'm anxious that something's not going to go according to plan, I just take a moment and I say that to myself, and just know that even if it doesn't go according to my plan, I know that it's going according to the plan that needs to happen.
Yep. I just got to do a training with one of my teams, and a friend of mine recently passed away. He was a motivational speaker. His name is Sean Stevens. He's a gentleman who's born with a congenital birth defect, where he basically has a torso, 2 tiny hands with no arms, and 2 legs, and he recently passed away. But as he was in the hospital getting ready to go into the surgery after his accident, he told his wife, "This didn't happen to me, it's happening for me." And that was the philosophy of his life. And that's the same idea, right? That whatever's happening in front of you, no matter what you see with your physical eyes, know that there's a conspiracy, if you will. It's for your good.
Positive conspiracy.
Yeah, for your good, right? Yes. And so that's a good thing. What's the best resource or tool that you believe every private practice owner should be using to grow their practice right now?
I would have to say it's staying in touch with local study clubs.
Oh,
It's
great
one of
idea.
those things that, a lot of doctors don't do, but the ones that I see who are involved in their local study clubs, they just have a little bit more of a relaxed feeling about them because if they run into a patient that they don't know how to do or what to do with it, they have a group of people they can always call out and lean on and be like, hey, this is a case that I have. It's really weird. I'm struggling with what to do. And in the same breath, it gives you a good resource of people that if it's something that's out of your realm or out of your wheelhouse, then you can refer them on to somebody who is good. And there's something that has, great about that collaboration. Like with ADMC, a lot of, we technically are all competitors, but we don't look at each other as competitors. We look at each other as colleagues. And if I run into an issue, I know I have a whole group of people that I can reach out to and be like, hey, this is the issue I'm running into. Have you run into this as well? And if so, how did you deal with it? And being able to do that as a clinician, I think is extremely important for your practice.
Love it. That's so important. For people who don't know, this podcast is for all types of practice owners. So ADMC is the American Dental Management Consultants.
Academy of Dental Management.
Academy.
Yes. We do have
international
US.
Academy of Dental Management Consultants. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for spending some time with us and sharing your information with us. We really appreciate your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise. And I hope that people will reach out to Chris over at the DTM Gurus.
GTS Gurus.
GTS, sorry. What did I say? I was going to Dental Management Consultant, sorry. GTSgurus.com.
Yes.
That's right. Awesome.
That's correct.
Well, thank you again so much for being here. We really appreciate you being willing to share your best practices.
I appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.